Purerera te purere hoa arewa rawa irungara.
He kaimahi toi rongorau a James Webster, āna te nui o ona pūkena, ka whānui ake āna mahi. Nā tōna kaina kau nui ki nā mahi toi, kua huri ia ki te ako i nā tikanga o te ao Māori. He kai peita, he kai whakairo, he kai mahi Taonga Puoro, he kai whakatangi Puoro, a he tohunga tāmoko hoki a James.
Marire ho ruia te pai.
Kai whiti ana e noho ana i naenei, kātahi anō ka hūnuku atu mai te motu o Waiheke.
Now my parents moved here 16 years ago after living in Otahu for 35 years, bringing up a family. So they moved from Otahu to here, basically. It's been great coming, visiting and spending time in Whitianga. And now that they've passed away, they've left the house to us kids, and I've just moved into the whānau home. I just really love living by the ocean. Get out on the water, go fishing, kai moana.
Ko te huarahi I whāia e James kia pakari āna mahi toi, ko te ako I nā āhuatana o te ao Māori. I timata mai ia e tai o hitonu ana.
High school was quite interesting for me, and I don't think my artistic Māori flair was very prevalent in those years, but I was real keen on art because it was sort of like the only subject I passed in school C was art, and I got a square 50 for that, so But I found when I started working in metalwork and in woodwork, I found metalwork a little bit cold for me, but I still really like working with my hands with wood. When I was leaving school, the trades practices were sort of more desirable for people to undertake. And I remember having applied for lots of different carpentry apprenticeships and cabinet making apprenticeships, anything to do with wood, but it sort of got rejected from most of them, except for the last one, the last application I was waiting back to hear from, which was the Māori Affairs trade training course, and got accepted on that. So I went from St. Stephen's to straight into the hostels and pursuing carpentry as a potential career option for me, because being an artist at that time as a career option wasn't really sort of supported. Generational Dreams. This particular piece was made in honour of my father after he had passed away. Our relationship was pretty rocky over the years, but heaps of aroha for the man, for who he was. Yeah, there's a lot of sort of carpentry perspectives, but a lot of the pieces that I used in the composition of the piece comes from his sort of era. So it was a hammer, and it was a mallet and a chisel. So Generational Dreams is about the dreams that your forefathers or your parents have for you and you have for your children, etc., which may not necessarily measure up to what your children have in store for themselves. And then you have this sort of like corridor that goes through here that says, well, what about your trade, boy? yeah, but Dad, I'm an artist now. And they went back to sort of a kōrero. I'd come back from overseas. I told him all about my trip away in relation to art, and that's what he said to me at the end of the, oh, but what about your trade, boy? You know? And I says, oh, Dad, you know, I'm an artist now, you know, sort of thing. So that sort of splayed across there sporadically. It's sort of like muddled sort of communications between generations. It's all painted in black, the background, so that represents the past. And the red represents the blood flowing through the present. And then the bottom piece represents sort of my identity as an artist.
Rua te kauna tau o James ka hunuku atu ki Waiheke. I te marae o reira ka whakaaro aia mo ona mō hiotana noi koretana rānei mo te ao Maori. Nā tēnei ka tīmata tana ako.
I just sort of thought, you know, who am I to be making decisions, you know, for the Māori community, for the well-being of the Māori community, if I actually don't know what, I actually don't know what Māori is for myself. So I sort of started, inquiring within myself about what that was, and I thought, wow, maybe I should get out there and have a look about what that is. So, that prompted me to go on a bit of a walkabout, really. Yeah, a bit of a pilgrimage around Aotearoa. I suppose what I was looking for in some ways was like self-identity, you know. Self-identity in relationship to, who I was in relation to having Pākehā father and a Māori mother, you know, those mixed marriage sort of issues that sort of occur within people. Went back to our maunga tapu, which was Pirongia Mountain, back to where my mother had grown up and whatnot, and sort of hiked up there and spent some time with the Patupai Herereans, you know, in the clouds and the mist up there, and then from there I went to Taranaki. And I went to Taranaki, Opanaki in particular, because that's where my grandparents were buried, and to Parihaka. Spent some time there and helped in building whare wiwi, which is like a huge grass house, and spent some time there. And then after that, travelled to Wellington and went down to the South Island and got in touch with these people that were organising the Greenstone Trails and met them. But sort of prior to that, I'd been having a whole series of dreams of different things, you know, and they were sort of lizards and trees and forests and a whole lot of different symbolic dreams. I had no idea about what I was dreaming about, but finally made contact with these people, and then when I met them, sort of conveyed my dreams and what to them, and they says, well, that a lot of the dreams that I had were sort of kaitiaki symbols for the ancient sort of symbols for the trail systems. And I thought, well, that's quite, interesting. And so I was quite keen to, sort of participate in this Greenstone Trail. I basically got involved in the trails, and for about 7 years from that time, this was in 1990, 7 years from that time, I'd returned every year to the South Island to do different treks and to just sort of to heed the calling. So after those treks, I returned to Waiheke Island thinking, okay, so I've done all these things. And so it really sort of inspired me to, and it sort of rekindled my passion for art, because I had sort of, I just had reawakened something in me that told me to pick up my pencil again, my paintbrush, and do some artistic stuff.